Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
I'm ready for the event.
WFLA-TV, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is WFLA-TV. How do you hear me?
I have you loud and clear. How me?
We hear you loud and clear as well. Jeanette, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
So for our viewers here on Earth, we are speaking with Jeanette Epps, a mission specialist on board the International Space Station with Crew 8. She has been there for about 4 months now of her planned 6-month stay. Now, Jeanette, I am Amanda Hawley, a meteorologist here at WFLA, joined alongside with meteorologist Rebecca Berry and JB Buno. He is our digital anchor here at WFLA, and we have a few questions prepared from us and some viewers. Are you ready to get started?
I'm ready to get started. Thanks.
All right, so I'll go first and then we'll do a little round table after that. So my first question for you is about the weather. As a meteorologist, I wonder what is the most interesting weather phenomenon that you have seen from 250 miles above Earth?
Well, we get solar weather here, so our station is so stable. We have something called torque equilibrium attitude, so we don't really feel a lot of the effects. But what we do have, we have atmospheric drags that still brings the space station down. So every now and then we have to get a reboost, and the reboost is done by the engines on the aft end of the space station. But we don't always feel that. So a lot of the things we see happening on Earth, and we don't really get a chance to feel those things happening on the vehicle. We're pretty safe up here. We're about 260 miles above the Earth's surface, and we're moving at about 17,500 miles per hour across the globe. So, we're kind of fortunate in that we don't experience some of the weather that we've seen happening on the ground from space.
And then the next question, Amanda and I were both crazy about the total solar eclipse. We traveled to Maine to see it, and I saw on your social that you got to see it too. Can you talk about seeing the total solar eclipse from your vantage point?
Well, the solar eclipse was absolutely, it was breathtaking. I mean, what we saw here on the space station, though, is not totally different than what you see on Earth. We basically saw a shadow moving across the Earth, and it was pretty eerie to see this dark shadow. I mean, it was probably black like the backdrop that the globe, the Earth, we see the Earth on this black backdrop during the day, and it's the deepest black you've ever seen. And the shadow was almost the same, moving across the globe of the Earth. And that, we were fortunate that we were able to catch it with a camera from the cupola. But, and maybe some of the other cameras on board caught a glimpse of it. But watching it, it was very airy and creepy, but also very beautiful and deep at the same time.
Jeanette, I don't know how much you're able to keep in touch with the news headlines up there in space versus down here on Earth, but news headlines here, of course, down on the ground. People talking about the Boeing Starliner team being up there with you guys for a bit of an extended stay. How are they doing, and what is it like when you're adjusting to, changes in plans or changes in expectations when it comes to the International Space Station and living up there in space?
Well, I can say it's been great having Sonny and Butch here with us. We've got an extra set of hands, 2 sets of hands, in fact, to help with some of the things that go on the space station. The space station is a 20-plus-year-old experimental laboratory that constantly needs work and maintenance, but we also have other research that we need to conduct as well. So there's always tons of work to do. And having Butch and Sonny, it's been a lot of laughs, a lot of good times. We've shared in a lot of the public affairs events that they've had, like they've been on Grand Ole Opry and the Boston Pops, and just sharing all these events with them. They've kind of changed. We had one cadence going going before they arrived. We were Expedition 71. Now we're Expedition 71 plus. And it's been an amazing time, new friends and just sharing new events, sharing new past experiences and chatting and talking. And so it's just an increase in our family, and it's been wonderful. I can truly say that we've had so many more laughs with having them on board.
Jeanette, we also have a question coming in from our stream producer, Rachel Tucker. So we're going to go now to a pre-recorded question from her.
Producer Rachel Tucker here. What was it like to look down at the Earth from space for the very first time?
I love this question, but every time I get this question, I don't know how to convey to people what we see from this vantage point the first time you look down at the Earth. You've seen the photos, and you kind of know what to expect, but when you see it live for yourself, it's kind of, there's a lot of things that go on. You start questioning a lot of things, and you're looking at the Earth from that vantage point and thinking about the people that you love there, thinking about your friends and family, thinking about traveling to other planets and other life in other places. But when you see the Earth, when I saw the Earth like on the backdrop of space during daylight, and it's an incredibly dark background that you see it on, it looks very lonely to me, and it just makes you wonder if we're alone in the universe. And but it also makes you feel like you're a part of something big. This is Earth is our space vehicle. We're in space together as the human race, and it does make you want to protect the planet. It makes you want to protect people, protect life in general on Earth, animals, everything. And it is a sense of belonging that you get as well. So it is quite an experience, needless to say, and finding the words to describe it is going to be hard for the rest of my life.
Real quick, I want to just hop in here before we go back to Amanda, Jeanette, because I told my wife that I was going to be talking to you today from, of course, down here on Earth to outer space, and she said she wanted me to ask you, are we alone in the universe? That's the question my wife wanted me to ask you, so I want to sneak that in there if I can, because you opened the door for me.
Well, that's another great question. Looking out in space at nighttime is such a different view because it is littered with lights all over the place. And you see the edge of the galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, and you know that we're one of billions of galaxies out there. So, one person said that, there should be life out there if you think about it, because there's billions of galaxies, not just solar systems, but galaxies. And so the only limiting factor is distance and travel. How do we get to them? How do they get to us? So I believe that the potential for it is high. And, it's a great question, and hopefully one day we'll be able to answer it.
So I do have another question coming in from a good friend of ours of the Tracking the Tropics team, which we'll explain what that is here in just a second, coming from Heather Monahan. But because we're talking about this now, I wanted to ask her question, and she wanted to know, if you could visit any other planet in our solar system or any other galaxy, where would you go?
Wow, that is an interesting question. And I've been watching a lot of sci-fi, and I love sci-fi. I'm like watching The Expanse and learning about the asteroid belt and Mars and living on the moon and things like that. I don't know if I want to venture out too far, but I guess I would want to start with Mars and then travel to the asteroid belt just to see what's going on there. And then to go beyond that to Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune would be that would be the next step after we get to Mars. I want to do something that's tangible and then go on to do something that we never dreamed of.
And you talked about how busy you are between the maintenance, which I'm sure is fulfilling, but is there a research project that you're more excited about, that you're working on, something that you're really passionate about?
Well, right now we're still doing a lot of stuff with plants. Just last week, Sonny and Butch were working on some plant hab stuff, looking at how water flows to the plants. And, everyone else, we are wrapping up we're getting to the point where we're going to start wrapping up our mission here, but we're going to work right up until the end. So, several things that we do. Today there was some nano-rack stuff. Last week we did all kind of different things to get ready as well. So the current research is constantly changing. It's never the same thing. Like we have transparent alloys that we're working on, a lot of DNA sequencing stuff. But for me, one of the things that I've been a part of from the beginning to now is the immunity assay stuff, where we're looking at the immune function of each human being on board. Well, I shouldn't say each one of us, but there's a group that we signed up for this research so that we can look at our immunity function while we're on board the station. So that's the process where you take the blood and then you do all the processing on board and then you freeze it so that then we can do the analysis on the ground. And so that excites me because I think one of the limiting factors that we'll have in staying on the moon and going to Mars is how do you get the human body to last longer outside of the Earth's protection? And so we do have to develop some kind of countermeasures for some things. But also, the exercise that we do, the foods that we eat can help augment that as well. But there will be a time when we could figure out what to do to the human body, maybe some kind of, with bone density. It was exercise was the thing, the countermeasure that we have for that. So what else can we do to get the human body to last and function properly outside of Earth's protection?
Jeanette, we took some questions from social media ahead of this event. Of course, taking questions directly from social media to the International Space Station. Let's go to the first one. We'll pop it up here. And this one comes from X from Crime Obsession saying, what do you miss most about living on Earth?
Well, we have great connectivity with our family while we're here and all of our friends, but seeing them in person and actually being able to hug them and have a conversation face to face is one of the things that I miss. And, sitting around the table, having a nice dinner together and just chatting the whole night over dinner is one of the things that I really miss.
And another question here comes in from Dalton on Facebook. Similar to that, you were just talking about staying connected to family and friends, but this question is, how do you access the internet in space? People can't imagine life, Jeanette, without access to the internet. So I know you have a 6-month mission up there. How regularly are you accessing the internet?
Well, we can access the internet every day. In fact, most of us do. So through our satellite systems and our comm systems, we use S-band and KU-band, we can access the internet. And that's also the vehicle by which we can talk to family. We can even use Teams. I've even used the web-based version of WhatsApp to stay in touch with friends and family. So, whenever we have the right satellite coverage, we can contact our friends and family through WhatsApp, through Teams, and we have another software that we can use as well. But in general, we can access the internet pretty much anytime that we have coverage to do that.
I'm sure that's how you stay up to date with current events and such as well. So us being meteorologists here in Tampa, Florida, we definitely stay tuned to the tropics. We have a digital show called Tracking the Tropics, and that's kind of mainly why we wanted to hop on here and ask you some questions. And I know you don't feel a lot of weather inside the International Space Station, but you can see a lot of it up from the cupola. And we want to know, you were up there while Hurricane Beryl was going on at the end of June and early July. Did you get to see Hurricane Beryl from the International Space Station?
Yes. And in fact, I even got a photo of it as it was passing Cuba and as it was in the region of the Caribbean. So it was right the day before that it hit Jamaica that I got a photo of it as it was traveling towards that region. And it was massive. It was a pretty big storm system. And you could tell that it was powerful and it was likely to do some damage. And so the weather, seeing it from here, my heart went out to the folks in the Caribbean, seeing that as it approached them. And, the nice thing is that we can see the storm before it hits while it hits and after it hits. And you could clearly see once it hit the Caribbean that it dissipated a little bit. It was actually a little smaller in size. So it is interesting seeing things from this vantage point, but knowing the devastation on the ground is always heart-wrenching, and especially in Houston, where I have friends who have, suffered some loss because of it. And so my heart goes out to all those people that was in the path, I should say, of Barrow. That was a pretty devastating storm.
And things have quieted down in the tropics since then. And our favorite thing on Tracking the Tropics to talk about is Saharan dust, because it's an indication that things are a lot quieter out there. Are you able to see that plume of dust coming off the coast of Africa across the Atlantic from where you are?
Yes, and it's interesting because before I realized that it was the dust that we were seeing, some of my images would come out looking kind of hazy and blurred, and I'm like, I couldn't figure out what was going on until I looked out there again with the naked eye, and you could see clearly that, it's a little hazy because there's a plume of dust that's going on there. But prior to that, I could get photos of like the Eye of the Sahara, that one feature that is so prominent as you pass over Africa, in that part of Africa, I should say. And the continent is just, it's beautiful when you don't have that plume of dust making your photos a little bit blurry.
Let's go to another question from social media. Cindy on Facebook is asking you, Jeanette, have your sleeping patterns changed?
Well, it has, but it's gotten better. It's really weird how I sleep really well here in space. We float when we sleep. We're just kind of floating like this, arms out, and you're in your sleeping bag, and you just kind of float. And it's interesting because I thought that I would sleep worse up here, and I'm not sure why I thought that, looking back. But up here, because I guess because we're weightless, we don't have anything weighing us down. It seems that my sleep patterns are a little bit better up here. I mean, when we have a very active day and we have a lot of stuff going on, sometimes you stay up thinking about these things. That happens anywhere. But for the most part, I actually sleep a little better up here.
I know that we are in the closing minutes of this event and talking to Jeanette Epps, of course, in the International Space Station. Jeanette, we are closing in on the Olympics in Paris, which I'm sure that you can see from outer space. Do you have anything to say to our Olympians representing the United States? We are, of course, an NBC station. We are excited for the Olympic Games in Paris. That is starting later this week with the opening ceremonies in France.
Well, I'd just like to say congratulations to making it to that point. We are so proud of you, and we're so indebted for everything that you do for your country. It is not the same as being patriotic in the military, but it's very patriotic to perform on behalf of your country. So thank you for everything that you're doing, and good luck in the games.
Love that so much. I know we have a couple minutes left here, Jeanette. I see you, hanging out with the microphone, flinging it around. You're just floating there in space. It is the coolest thing to sit here and watch on our screen. Now I see, I see that, you're a fellow scuba diver. Me and Rebecca and JB, all of us scuba divers. Now, being neutrally buoyant in the water, there's nothing like it. How does it compare to being in space? And has training with the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory, did that really prepare you for being up there?
Well, I'm so glad you asked that question, because one of the things when I first came here, there were times where I would feel like I'm swimming, but like in the sense of scuba diving. And it is a weird feeling to kind of have that thought of going back to scuba diving. I never thought that it would be so similar, but it is very similar. So neutral buoyancy is a great analog to being weightless in space. And when you're scuba diving, some of the movements that you do, initially that's what I was doing until I realized that in space, if you add a little force, you'll go very fast, and you just need very light touches here, and you can propel yourself forward. But it is initially, that was the sensation that I got, that I was scuba diving again, somewhere like maybe in the Philippines again, or at the Neutral Buoyancy Lab. but it is a great analog to being weightless. So I think, when I get back, I'm going to start training, doing that kind of stuff again, just to remember what it's like to be up here.
Well, thank you so much, Jeanette, for your time. I can't wait. I'm excited for that answer because hopefully one day I'll be in space. It's my goal to be where you're at right now. So I can't wait for that feeling of being up there. We really appreciate your time with us today, Jeanette. I really appreciate you being here with us. So for JB, Rebecca, and myself, thank you.
No, it's my pleasure, and good luck with your future plans of being in space. There's so many more opportunities out there now. Good luck. Hopefully I'll see you in space.
One day.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event. Thank you.
Thank you to all participants. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.